Welcome to another episode of Soul Reach Deeper Dimensions. I'm Carl, and today I want to dive deeper into the dimensions of death and dying. And as I do this, I want to do it very tactfully and I want to do it very carefully because I don't want to minimize or diminish anyone's current situation with grief and loss or anyone's individual situation or circumstances that may feel impossible to get through or impossible to overcome. I'm trying to make this video and talk about this from a place of heart-centered compassion, from a place of experience, having recently had my father pass away in the last couple of years due to an ongoing struggle with dementia and internal memory and recollection problems. And I want to discuss how all of this ties in with my experiences with personally with meditation, and an experience that I had near my father's casket at sort of a private viewing with my family, and how that also ties in with my first real meditation experience as an adult, right when I really needed it the most. And so we'll be talking about a few things today. And before we jump into that, I hope that you notice and appreciate the background music and audio that we have created. Our team and family have created this whole environment of meditation music and sound bath audio music that, first of all, speaking of my father, one of the things that I notice is that in a lot of nursing homes and elder care facilities, there's usually just like a radio playing over the speaker, and the patients at the facility don't necessarily get to pick or choose what audio they get to listen to. And I feel like in today's day and age that each individual room and in that phase of life towards the end of your life, I personally would like to be able to request exactly what type of music and audio is playing. I would want this kind of audio. Even if I'm home, I would love to have beautiful, relaxing, uplifting, frequency balanced audio music that is meditative, feels like it would work great for yoga or for a spa. And all of this Soul Reach audio music we are uploading over to our other main YouTube channel over on Soul Reach. And we've uploaded a new guided meditation for study and memorization. That's a really powerful one where you actually learn how to craft your inner dimensions through a guided meditation in just 10 minutes or less, where you can go around a visualized room and place each item and part of each item that you're trying to memorize around the room one at a time as you lay it out from most important to least important that you need to memorize it. And there's a whole bunch of methods as well as turning around in the room that you've thought of and being able to visualize every page of a book and exactly how it was laid out. I don't know about you, but if you're a visual memorizer, a visual learner, that should help you as well. I don't want to talk about this too long and try to sit and promote the meditations, but if you're interested in guided meditations, please check those out, and I'll put the links for all of those down in the description box below. But hopefully, in caring for people, they can put more meditative music and audio, sound bath type environments in elder care facilities. I think that would be a really good thing and a really helpful thing for people trying to have a more calm and peaceful state of mind. So with that, I want to talk first of all about the first real sort of epiphany moment, what everybody would consider their awakening or a moment of enlightenment, and how that ties in with death and dying. and the illusion of death and dying. And my personal philosophy and some just basic logic around the concept. But first, I want to talk about the experience that I had while meditating at my father's graveside. I did have an experience once meditating after reading Eckhart Tolle's book about the power of now, about being fully present here and now. And I was struggling to meditate, and I did have a great moment of clarity when I was sitting in the garden in our backyard around our swing set. We have some porch swings out in our back patio area, and I was sitting out there, and I was really struggling, and my mind was just racing and racing and racing, and I had all these emotions. And at the time, my father hadn't passed away yet. He was just very unhealthy and in kind of a care facility, a really good care facility, but still not doing really well. And so I had a lot on my mind and was struggling with all of those emotions and trying just to be fully present, and realizing that my mind couldn't stop seeking. It couldn't stop racing and going and going and going. And my emotions were shifting. And as soon as I felt any kind of like a break or peace of mind, my internal chatter would just kick in and be like, "You're doing it. Oh, it's working." And then it would just get flooded with frustration. Like, "No, you're noticing again, and you can't be fully present." And I was just trying to like not think, and I was really struggling with that. And instead of just having that innocence and that wonderment of actually being fully present, I was trying to like get there, like it isn't already this, and it isn't already everything fully fulfilled. And I was sitting there struggling as if it was somewhere I needed to go and somewhere that I needed to be, as if it wasn't already. And as I was doing that, a hummingbird flew up, and it flew right around my head and came right up in front of me. And the sound of the hummingbird was so loud that it sort of short-circuited my brain. And I think the way that it flew around my head from right to left, it like went around my ears, something in that binaural sound effect of the hummingbird and it chittering the way they talk. I don't know if you've ever heard hummingbirds communicate, but it's really cool, high-pitched chirping back and forth. This hummingbird zipped around my head, and when it did that, it just stopped right in front of me. And the complete hovering and the hum, it was like a fully natural binaural hemisync sound wave went vroom through my subconscious, and it just stopped me from thinking. And there's all sorts of meditation methods and sound bath, sound bowl, and bells you can ring. People, they meditate to the sound of tones and frequencies and things to help their mind quiet. But I hadn't really discovered any of those tools or methods and tricks yet. And this hummingbird just suddenly startled me, and immediately the sense of being myself basically slipped away. And I was just present, witnessing. And the interesting thing is that I wasn't naming or labeling anything. It was like I wasn't thinking, it's working, there's a hummingbird. It was just happening. It was just as is happening. Everything, the hummingbird, although of course I was there and identified it as a hummingbird, everything sort of became one whole sort of user interface, if there's such a way of describing it. That's how it felt at the time, as though everything stopped and my train of thought quit thinking, and the space in between the words sort of opened. And in that moment, my mind just felt clear. And just like your heart beats on its own and your hands will gesture on their own, and you can get in the car and drive around town and wonder, how did I drive here and get here? I had, my mind was somewhere else. I don't even remember driving and taking the turns. And you realize that your autonomy is sort of going on its own, and your body is flowing in a harmony, and your heart and your lungs are working together, and you're breathing. Your heart is beating on its own, and your mind is functioning on its own, and your body can move in a way on its own. And in such a way, without really being present to be the one thinking through it or doing it, I found myself getting up, and my body went over and sat down under these beautiful bloomed oleander bushes, and these hummingbirds were just zipping through the bushes behind me and coming out in front of me and clearing my mind. And it had to have been around a half hour or something like that before I started really thinking about it and realizing I was processing it all. But it really felt like a timeless state, like I was back in this Garden of Eden sort of state of mind, and everything just felt whole, and I was a part of it. And that was my first real, like, wow, is that what I read about in all the books? and then I immediately just started chasing, and that yearning and that seeker energy just consumed me again, trying to chase after answers and trying to get back to that feeling again, a feeling like of nirvana, or like, whoa, I didn't even have to be me for a while. I sort of vanished, like was able to reset back to zero, and all of that overthinking and overanalyzing stopped. And so if anything, I didn't understand it fully. I didn't know what to call it. I hadn't studied very much. I was just really new to meditating and trying to get peace of mind. And sort of like the hummingbird sort of triggered my subconscious through some like hemisync trick to do that in a really kind of beautiful way. But once I'd been there, it was like I had swam down to the deep end, and I knew the way, and I knew what it felt like. So once I had been there, it was like I had already put the shoe on, and I knew how it fit, so I knew what to expect. Sort of what I would expect, like a lucid dreamer. Once you've experienced a lucid dream, you're like, aha, now I know the difference between a regular dream and a lucid dream, as well as like a meditation and a sort of visionary experience. Within the meditation, you can learn those inner dimensions and begin to tell the difference a little bit as you practice. And so with all of this in mind, leading up to this, my father passes away. And so at this point, I am really counting on all of these tools, these meditation methods, to help protect me, to help keep my emotions stable, to help keep me centered, to help keep me from basically losing my mind after my main parental father figure passed away. And so I was driving up there to be with him, and got the call. I got the call on the way up there. And basically by the time I got there, he had already been moved out of his care facility and was being prepared at the funeral home for burial. And we were basically planning on going over there and picking out the casket and going through all of those steps to prepare for the funeral. And we had a private viewing, and we were able to go in there and see my father's body in the casket. It was open on the left-hand side from where I was facing, and I could see him laying there. And they did a really good job making him look the full resemblance of everything from my best memories and everything that I hoped. And sometimes viewings can be uncomfortable that way, and can be sort of jarring if you haven't been to a viewing where you see the person's body there. I don't have a preference. I personally prefer myself to be cremated for personal reasons, but I don't have a problem with anybody doing things the way that they want. And so I was standing there and gathering around with my brothers and my mom and my family, a really small get together there with him. And it occurred to me, I wanted to take some time alone to stand in there and meditate, because I had done well with my emotions and felt at peace. But I just wondered what it would be like in that state. And part of me, maybe my, what you call the ego or the seeker, wanted to see what would happen if I could make contact clairvoyantly or spiritually, anything, But mostly I just wanted to be there and have a moment alone, and just process it and let it be real. I didn't want to glaze over that moment. I didn't want to fly through it and not appreciate it. I wanted to allow it to be poignant, and I wanted to let it sink in, and it did. And so I asked my family for a moment. I said, I'd just like to take, maybe 10 minutes in here. And so they respected that. And to describe the room, I would say that the ceiling was maybe 8 feet high, and kind of older texture, but white, with basic fluorescent lighting in the room. And it was sort of like a chapel or church type of environment, but a little bit outdated. And the room was maybe 40 feet by 50 feet wide. And so I basically, once I had the room to myself, I decided to stand there for a moment near the casket, and then I wanted to give some space in the room. Not just to be there as though the summation of who my father was, the totality of him, was about the body and his body there in the casket and grieving over the body. But to basically stand back and instead be there in his presence, or the energy and the memory of him and who he was, and allow that to sink in fully and let that be okay. And also to let the realization of the moment that it's never going to be the same again, and let that be okay, and take the time to stand there. So I stepped away to create some space in the room. So there's just me in this open space, and then there is him laying there. And in this moment, I don't know if it was because of how strong the combination of my emotions and my mind was, everything completely heightened, my aura completely energized and full in the moment, and my emotions completely capped. I'm reaching out, but also sort of surrendering and accepting. Just being there in the moment and letting it be what it was. And I didn't analyze it. I stopped replaying the past. I quit trying to wonder and stress about the future. I just was there. And I quit thinking thoughts in my mind and was just as fully present as I could be. And I don't know how to describe it, but in that moment, It was as though the entire field of energy of the room just lit up. As though the best way I can describe it is if you were standing inside a fluorescent bulb, and then the voltage or the light was turned up brighter, and the entire room just sort of enlightened. But for a moment, in a strange way, it was as though I could see a waveform of light, or that everything in the room, in a strange holographic appearance, appeared to be made of light or have sort of an overlay of light. And the whole room lit up, just very subtle. And I witnessed this and noticed it and was in it. And in this moment, had this sort of epiphany, or this arrival of realization that I can only describe as this intense download of physics and knowledge and understanding of the nature of reality, like a whole encyclopedia and a whole in-depth point of view, or a philosophical perspective of the nature of reality as it is, being basically an entire energetic dream, the entire perception of everything being a reflection. It was as though I could see that the emptiness of space is what really goes on forever. And everything that appears to matter within that empty space is only appearing as a reflection of light. And somehow within the room, it was as though being inside of a crystal, like a shard of glass, and then having it light up. And when it did this, it was like I knew the nature of reality, in that, like being in a dream, the dreamer isn't really separate from the objects in the environment of the dream, but it's all one field of apparent energy. In the space in between and the objects and everything within it, if we're talking about a dream, and while you're sleeping in a dream, are all interconnected as this one appearance of light. And at the same time, it was as though I also learned and realized and understood that even if it was physical matter in the nature of reality, everything is perceived as a waveform or photons, or we can give it all sorts of names. This interface of reality and experience that we call our life, that is all passing through our eyes, through waves of light, through a spectrum of a simple few colors on the rainbow combined in different variations. And all the sounds are just different tones and frequencies and waveforms, not that much different than the waves of light, but we hear it with our ears. And all of that, from our touch, our taste, to our sight, to sound, all of our senses, they all end up inside our neurons, or inside the brain, apparently, inside the subconscious, as light, as electricity, as electrical neural impulses. In the end, it's all a reflection. It all has to reflect off the eyes and through the pupils, through the ears, through the senses, and through the nerves. And everything I realized in a holographic sort of way arises as the dreamer arises, and reality as a sort of holographic representation. I know there's a struggle for words to describe this, but if you imagine reality as a dream, you are not separate as the experiencer and the witness of that. How you perceive that field of light and that experience, that user interface, that whole realm of reality as you see, feel, and experience it from your point of view is all one thing. It's all your experience. In the end, it's singular in the here and now. And there are some teachings regarding that that aren't necessarily true. But when you follow the logic, if you died and you noticed that you were dead, if you are there noticing that you're dead, then who's dead? I'll say that again. If you died and realized you were dead, who is dead? Also, if you died and didn't notice that you had died, that you didn't realize it, then who is dead? It would go unnoticed. But also, if you died and didn't realize that you had died and didn't notice it and just went to nothing, a zero, even if that zero or that nothingness went on and on and on for what we would call 1 trillion years, eons, the moment that you arised again, the gap in between would go unperceived. You wouldn't notice it. That zero would go unnoticed, as though it didn't happen. Because for you, as the experiencer of your reality, it didn't. Your life and your reality is only ever what you're noticing in the now. And if you're not there to notice that you're gone, then who's gone? There's only aliveness. Only this, the now. So the idea that you someday will die, or that will happen, it may apparently happen to the body. But if you died and you noticed that you were dead, then who's dead? And if you died and didn't notice that you had died, then who is dead? No one. There's a sense of seeking and yearning for completion, a desire that is like ingrained and conditioned into the subconscious being of feeling like you are a human being, an individual living person, a human soul with a purpose. And you feel like you have to have a purpose, and you have to seek after that to fulfill it and to complete it. And you have to avoid death and dying, and you have to be afraid of it and fear that and everything. But the truth is that death could possibly be a total illusion. For the experiencer of that process, if they notice that it's occurred, then it really hasn't happened. It's only been a change, an apparent change. And what's happening for them is different. But guess what? It's always different, even now. Fully and totally in the present. Staying where you're at, not fearing the future, not ruminating about the end of your life or the end of yourself. The truth is, if you notice that your death has occurred, then has it really happened? And if you went unnoticed and you didn't notice that it happened, then you didn't notice. And we wonder how we got here. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Is there an afterlife? Did I come from somewhere else before here? All of these questions really are here and now and present when you stop seeking. And this can be it, when you realize that searching for it and feeling like this can't be it, that this can't be exactly the life that you want, is something that is a part of that perfection. I know that we've talked about a lot of interesting and deep things. I wanted to share with you my perspective of what occurred there in front of my father's body. It's taken me some time to process it and to decide what it all means and to unpack it emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually, philosophically, what it means for me in reality, or what I feel is the purpose of life, what it means for meditation in my life, my understanding and concept of reality and death and dying, and what that experience could and should be like. And you're welcome to have your own beliefs and thoughts about that and whatever you want. I just felt like it was okay for me to share that with you, and also to sort of treat this as a dimension of like a journal or a record that is fun for me. There's something about talking about this and sharing it, these types of experiences, that's good for me. And hopefully if there's other people out there that stumble across this, they can maybe get some help through guided meditations, through personal meditations, listening to the right kind of environmental sound, audio, and music. We're trying to provide all of that over on Soul Reach. And hopefully that my experience sharing this with you has maybe helped someone out. I don't want to get too sappy or emotional about it. It was really just like a download of information. And I felt totally at peace and fulfilled, and realized I didn't really need to go anywhere to see my father. And I've had other deep meditation experiences where I've actually created an interdimensional sort of visionary waiting room environment within myself, so that when I close my eyes and meditate, I can sort of visit this waiting room or visitor's place and create a space to communicate with my father, or at least relive the memories, or receive what I would perceive subconsciously as a message from him of support and love. Or I can say to him things that I wish I would have said when he was alive, and feel at peace and energetically heal myself and let those things go. And hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that. If you have any thoughts or any more questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments section down below. This has been Soul Reach Deeper Dimensions. I hope that you appreciated me sharing these experiences with you, and that you feel comfortable sharing them back down in the comments below. And we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.